Have you ever wondered why certain situations seem to push someone to their breaking point, or why some days feel more overwhelming than others, even when nothing dramatic seems to have changed? Today, we're diving into the world of stressors and unpacking how they impact behavior. We'll explore the acronym HELP, which stands for Human, Emotional, Cognitive, Location, and Physical, and look at how recognizing these can transform the way we manage and respond to the behavior. If you are caring for someone else, whether paid or unpaid, and no matter how many hours you do it, did you realise that you may be missing out on thousands of pounds of discounts for things that you may use every day? The Able to Care podcast is proud to be sponsored by the UK's #1 carers card. Started by two best friends who recognise that carers deserve better and are 100% committed to helping to change the lives of all carers and bringing them together as a strong community. Carers Card UK provides support, recognition and rewards. It offers reassurance by providing an ID card that helps access emergency information when needed, while also unlocking discounts, a wellbeing hub, a carers circle tool and a community through their app. All of this for less than the price of a box of chocolates a year. There are discounts on gym membership, days out, electrical goods, clothing and even glasses. Let others know you care while taking a little care of yourself with an ID card you can be proud of. Visit carerscarduk.co.uk/promo code/able to care today to order yours. Hello and welcome back to a Friday episode of the Able to Care podcast. I am your host, Andy Baker, and today we're going to be talking about stressors. So one of the things when I'm teaching a lot around behavior is I help people to understand that basically the behavior we see, if we imagine a box, on the lid of the box is a behavior we're experiencing. But when we open the lid of that box, we're finding it's a collaboration of three different things. That it's one, it's an unmet need, one is a stress, and then one is a strategy. And those three things combined are what we recognize as a behavior. So the basic idea is that an unmet need stimulates stress. So if I haven't eaten, that creates hunger, which is a stress. So then I'll create a strategy to go and get that food. Or sometimes a stress leads to an unmet need. So for instance, the stress could be like fear, as an example. I'm nervous about something, I'm worried about something, which then gives me the need to control it. And therefore the strategy is, well, how can I control this situation? How can I either avoid it or gain something from it? And that's then the strategy. Now, the strategies we experience, as I've mentioned on other episodes, can either be adaptive or maladaptive. So they're adaptive, like if I'm hungry, making myself a sandwich is an adaptive strategy to meet my needs. So that's the behavior you see. A maladaptive would be stealing the sandwich off somebody else. It still meets that need, it still reduces the stress, but it's whether it's socially acceptable or beneficial for my well-being. When we're looking at understanding stresses is a really useful element that we should always be doing. And one of the fundamental elements of what I teach is that we should always be responding rather than reacting. We should always be looking at why might this behavior be occurring now, looking for the communication in that behavior and trying to better understand it. Now, that can be difficult, though, because stressors aren't always a trigger. It's not always a case of this stressor being, if I'm hungry, I don't necessarily go around and lash out at people. However, most of us know that, well, you may know a colleague who suffers from hunger, where them being hungry is a contributing factor, what I call a slow stressor. It's something that's building up in the background. It's something that's shaking up the bottle of Coke, as the analogy I've used a few times, but it isn't necessarily enough to take the lid off, but it increases the likelihood that it's going to happen. So the more we can be understanding about an individual's stressors, the more we might be able to reduce some of those or give them better strategies to cope and manage with those. So let's go through the acronym of HELP then and explore that a little bit more. What do we mean by stressors? So stressors are anything that puts demand on a person's emotional, mental, or physical resources. They come in all forms and can build up slowly over time, as I mentioned, or they can act as an immediate trigger for behaviors that we find challenging. But by understanding the different types of stressors, we can better understand we sometimes can better understand ourselves as well as those that we might be supporting. So I came up with the acronym HELP, which stands for Human, Emotional, Cognitive, Location, and Physical. Okay, so let's break each one of those down and explore them. So starting off with human, typically what we class as interpersonal stressors. Most of it's fine. So whether it be a conflict in a relationship, whether it be feeling controlled or criticized or misunderstood or patronized or belittled or any of those feelings where somebody else seems to be the cause of your distress. They're winding you up. They're making you feel bullied. They're making you feel overwhelmed. Now, an important thing with human stressors is it's not necessarily how the perpetrator feels, it's how the recipient feels. Like a bully may be going, I was only joking. That doesn't make it less any impactful for myself. It's how I'm experiencing it that is going to be the stress factor. Okay. So it isn't always about the person necessarily doing something wrong, but it could be that I'm finding that overwhelming. I'm finding that difficult to cope with, and it's still shaking up the bottle of Coke if we follow that analogy through. It could be being treated unfairly or something around justice, but it could also be feeling ignored, feeling forgotten, feeling neglected, whatever it is. Those kind of feelings of I'm not getting attention, somebody is making me feel a particular way. So conflicts in relationships, feeling excluding, unsupported, or any kind of overbearing or controlling interactions with other people could be a risk factor. So if we're looking to reduce the stress on us human, one, it's recognizing, are you the person that's shaking at the bottle of Coke? Are you the human stressor? Therefore, switching faces, changing the person, interacting with somebody else can all potentially help. But also it's about helping to build better connections and relationships with other people, helping them to kind of navigate, and building skills around assertion and boundaries can be really important of helping somebody of how to address it. But it's also about building trust and open communication, but also then things like recognizing if I am causing somebody stress, can I acknowledge the feelings and then validate and kind of make adjustments, that connection before correction kind of positive principle. Human beings are very social creatures. We are very sensitive to rejection or control or all of the human interactions we have. They are a big factor. Even just somebody not saying hello to you in a way that they usually do in the morning can have that ripple effect of then everything else in a person's day just seems to be more negatively slanted. The next one on the list is an emotional cognitive. Now, this kind of covers all of them in some ways, but it's trying to get us to think about, is it the way they're feeling or the way they're thinking? If it's the way they're feeling, this is where they need some validation. Now, are they anxious? Are they frightened? Are they feeling frustrated? We need to kind of interpret those feelings to then hopefully better be able to either empathize with them or help them to manage those feelings. Whether we feel they are true or justified or not, the person's feeling it. We also need to recognize things that may not be so obvious. So especially for like those of you in the group, whether you're a teacher, for instance, is this child going through fear and anxiety about coming into the class? And it's nothing to do with you, but they're struggling with something else. Has something happened at home that's affecting them? Remember those 3 questions when we're looking at understanding and empathizing behavior is, what are they feeling right now? What's wrong for them? And what might have happened that seems to be affecting this moment? And that's that trauma-informed kind of as well. It may not be something 5 minutes ago. It could be something in the past, and this time of year, particularly if you're listening to this around December, there is so many emotional cognitive stressors around this particular time of the year. So all of your trauma aspects are in this area. But we also need to think about the cognitive, the way I think, everybody's against me, I'm not good enough. All of these kind of internal thoughts, the automatic negative thoughts or other feelings of I'm better than, or this is the way people should behave. So any phrases around should and shouldn't, this is where you need to be very self-reflective for yourself around all of these stresses. Are you thinking should, shouldn't, must not kind of statements in your head related to somebody else? Are they causing you agitation and stress? And do you need to manage your thoughts? When we're building or managing these with others, obviously these can affect people in lots of different ways. But how to address it is, one, if it's emotional, helping a person to be in the moment, helping with grounding techniques, mindfulness can obviously be really, really helpful. But also then validation and empathy and acceptance as far as those feelings, but then also then redirecting or when they feel ready, helping them out of the emotional hole as an analogy. But also if it's a cognitive, this is where if we have trust we can potentially challenge. We might be able to, and there is lots of stuff in my book around kind of challenging negative automatic thoughts and the way of doing it, of getting people to really look at the facts of the situation. You've got somebody who's mind reading. Well, they don't like me anyway. Well, what evidence do you have that they don't like you? What are the reasons you feel they don't like you? Is there anything they've ever acted or anything they've ever done that actually counters that idea? So you can go into quite a lot, but you need trust before you can challenge, because otherwise you can come across like you're invalidating somebody's feelings, or you're not taking them seriously, or you don't understand. And that's a common mistake that many adults with children do, or adults to adults, exactly the same as well, where you think you know better, so therefore you don't validate the feelings before you then start challenging or offering alternative viewpoints. The next on the list then is location. Is there something about the environment? Now, I just put a post on recently about I woke up and heard the wind blowing outside, and I immediately felt this element of, I hate the wind. I don't want to go outside. I don't like it. Because for some people, the weather can have a massive impact on just their emotional mood, whether it be due to sensory problems or sometimes even being too hot, being too cold affects us. Me getting too hot doesn't mean I'm going to have a meltdown, but it may mean that I'm going to struggle more. My patience is lower. My ability to cope with other things may be affected as a result of that. So with location is, can I change the environment, or can we move this person away from this environment? This is where, again, we're feeding into the whole preventative, proactive, and responsive, that if I know that a certain environment, or, being too hot, or it being too bright, or the lights in this room cause somebody distress, well, if I know they live in this environment, can I reduce that stress slightly by changing something about it to avoid the stress from happening in the first place? Sometimes you can't always do that if we're going somewhere new. We can't control every environment, but there may be things we can do preventatively, especially around environment. But it could be down to it's too busy, it's too overwhelming, it's too quiet. Some people get home and as soon as they walk through the door, they have to put Alexa on, they have to put the TV on. They need noise. They can't cope with silence, especially linked in with emotional cognitive. So is it too quiet in here for this person? They're too busy with their thoughts. It gets more distressing. So actually they need some noise to be able to cope. Now, the last one on the list then is the P, which is then physical. And this covers everything that may affect our physical well-being. So is it hunger? Is it illness? Is it pain? Is it tiredness? All of these, again, they're things that escalate or build up, but they can be a trigger. If I hurt myself, I'm more likely to lash out at other people in that moment, or I'm more likely to swear. So again, these can all be slow stressors, or they can be triggers to behavior. But physical, and it could be anything from hormonal, it could be, tiredness because I haven't slept very well. Now, when we're analyzing behavior in things like ABC charts, or the antecedent, what happened before, what happened during, what happened after a behavior, there's something that often should be kind of included, which is the slow stressors, what we call the setting events. They didn't sleep very well last night. They didn't have any breakfast this morning. So straight away, well, are they tired? Are they hungry? Are these factors that increase the risk or increase the vulnerability of this specific behavior occurring? Because if we know that, then we can better prepare. They didn't sleep very well last night, so let's prepare for the behavior, or let's lower other stressors in this person's world to help them be able to cope. So whether we're working with children, whether adults, or with those living with dementia, understanding the things that might cause this person to become agitated stress allows us to put preventative measures in. If we know that those things have occurred, then we can better proactively manage, but also gives us a better idea when the behavior occurs is what might I be able to do to reduce some of this distress, reduce some of this overwhelm in this particular moment, allowing us to better respond rather than react. And this is the detective rather than the judge philosophy that I know I mention quite often to those who are listening. So the idea of this, when we're looking at the HELP acronym, is it human, emotional, cognitive, location, or physical? And the reason that I kind of did it like that is because the first thing we should be doing when we're working with individuals, rather than going into judgment mode, rather than going into correction, is how can I help? We are looking to see if we can help this person, because most people don't want to behave in maladaptive ways. Either they don't know the adaptive or they are overwhelmed. They've reached a point where the adaptive solutions were no longer available to them. So they're either in reflex mode, which is your fight, flight, freeze, fawn kind of emotional responses, and therefore we're in emotional dysregulation, or I've only got maladaptive strategies available. So if you can help me by recognizing and working with me to understand how you can help, then you've got a better chance of managing behaviors, de-escalating situations, and also understanding and empathizing those that you work with. And final point is it also helps you to understand you. What are your help elements that you need to be aware of? And I know this is something that winds me up. So if I'm already wound up, what do I know works to then calm me down, to de-escalate me? When you are working with others, when you interact with people, and I don't care whether you are a business manager, whether you're a teacher, you're a parent, whether you're a caregiver, whatever, all of us have these stressors, and all of these stressors can impact how you interact with others on a day-to-day basis. And the way you interact with others is going to affect the way they interact back with you. So hopefully you found this useful. Remember, like, comment, and share if you found any of what I covered on today's episode useful or interesting. Thanks. Let me ask you a question. Do you ever find the pressures of supporting, teaching, or caring for someone else overwhelming and wish you had access to more support and information? The Able to Care podcast, in connection with Able Training, has created the ablehub.uk, where for less than the price of a coffee a week, you can access exclusive podcast content, resources, events, and over 45 certified online courses, covering topics like self-care, understanding dementia, neurodiversity, first aid, conflict management, financial advice, and so much more, with new content and courses being added each month. We are so confident that you will benefit from the Able Hub that we are offering 14 days access completely free of charge. No contract, cancel anytime. Become part of the ablehub.uk community and gain the support, knowledge, and resources you deserve. Don't struggle alone. Be able. Find the link in the description.